Welcome everybody, my name is Paul. I'm a realtor in the western part of Virginia near Lexington in the Shenandoah Valley. And today I'm going to talk about how we use drones and unmanned aircraft in the real estate business. A little bit about my background. I got into real estate a couple times in my life, just mostly part-time. Right now it's a second career. I used to be a photographer, and during that process of being a photographer, I also got into aviation and aerial photography, and I got a private pilot license, so I also have some experience, quite a bit of experience in a small aircraft, and indeed I actually own a small aircraft, a two-seater, and I also got into real estate. So today I want to address this to people who might be in the real estate industry as professionals. There's a lot of people like that, various kinds of inspection people and mortgage type people, and people who are concerned about buying a property, and insurance companies and so on. So it's a very big subject. And as I said, I used to do aerial photography, and what I would do is I would go to a location, I would study my job, and I would determine exactly what time of day I was going to try to photograph this property. Or usually it was sometimes a big bridge or a construction property or a large estate or something like that. And what I would do is I'd hire a local pilot and borrow, the price of the aircraft, and we'd go up together, and I would fly to the location, and he would do the controls while I took my pictures. And then I went back, and along the way I got up with a lot of different people in a different aircraft and a lot of different areas around the Northeast and the Massachusetts area, Connecticut, southeastern New York, and even some into New Jersey. So when I moved to Virginia about 7 years ago, I decided to get into real estate again, and photography had changed quite a bit, and there's a lot of new technology, which I'm going to show you here shortly. But the aviation, it used to cost quite a bit of money. I used to charge quite a bit of money to go out and rent a plane and go up and take some pictures. Now, along came the drones. In the last 10 or 15 years or so, the drones are starting to become popular. And I've always been into computers and technology, so I started realizing, hey, you know what? We're moving from the aircraft into the drones, and drones are heavily used in real estate. So I got into real estate with the idea of combining both my photography experience and my aviation experience, and now I have a drone. Now, I'll tell you a bit about the one I have right now, but I'll tell you a little bit about the uses that we use drones for, because it's a very, very rapidly growing industry and involves a lot of technical skills that a lot of people do not realize. I'm about to get my license for the commercial Part 107 aviation unmanned aircraft operator's license. Now, that requires quite a bit of study and a test very similar to the one I took for getting my private pilot license, where you sit down and it was like a lot of questions and you had to get a good score, and there was a lot of tricky ones, and you have to really know something. And for example, let me just show you a little bit about mapping. I have here a sectional chart which we had to learn all about when we learned to pilot a small aircraft. Now, it looks really complicated, and it really is. And a private pilot has to know what every single thing on that map means. Exactly. See? So there's a lot to know. Now, when you get a pilot license for a commercial drone operator, you also need to consider a lot of the similar things that regular flight pilots like myself have to consider. Now, the airspace is where we all fly, and naturally there's an expansion of drones. And now, to understand how to manipulate your drone safely, there's a whole lot of things you need to understand, including the weight of your aircraft and the various features and the battery condition and life and how it operates and possible damage to the drone and so on. So getting a commercial Part 107 license for flying a drone commercially is a skill and involves quite a bit of knowledge and expertise, let alone actually operating the aircraft. Now, some of these small little drones here have technology that little plane owners would dream of. I mean, oh my goodness, like fly to home automatically and always being tracked. It has a transponder in it and so on. So it's extremely complex technology, and to operate them successfully, just the aircraft part of it, it's a small aircraft, and some of them are much bigger than this, and they carry loads up to 55 pounds. So that is a very serious operation when you start flying a drone around, and that's a little bit about the prelude and introduction to help people understand that it's no small feat to go down and just fly this drone around. You have to know what you're doing, just like flying a regular plane. Now, when it comes down to jobs, so see this connector right here, I can see exactly what this drone is being photographed, and I can manipulate it this way and that, and I can turn the camera, and I can make waypoints, and I can do a programmed flight, and I can do a whole bunch of complex maneuvers that are programmed into this flight controller. And it has motion sensors. These sensors in the front are obstacle sensors. They also look backward, and there's also some on the bottom. So this particular drone can avoid obstacles, which is quite clever. And once again, this one is a registered drone. You have to put that number on your drone when you fly it for commercial. Now, once again, at this moment here in October 19th, 20th of 2022, I have studied heavily for this test, and I have operated my drone, and I've learned a whole lot of things about this drone, and I'm getting ready to take my test. I just have to set it up. I'm very confident I'll pass because it involves a lot of knowledge that I already have as a private pilot. Now, the way we use drones in this business, people automatically understand, look, it's just take a picture. I used to photograph homes from the ground with my camera and try to get some nice photos and so on to promote a home. Now, the advantage of the drone is that compared to a large aircraft, which I also have, a two-seater, you have to fly a maximum of 400 feet above any ground obstacle or ground level, so that you can fly, if there's a building 200 feet high, you can fly 400 feet above that and no more. But you have to be within a short distance of that to qualify. Now, there's a lot of regulations that I won't get into, but how do you use a drone is beyond just taking a picture and floating the drone around the house and getting some nice pictures from above and so on. The drone use can be used for property inspection. Let's say you're looking at a home for somebody, a client. I can go out there and take a look, and I can go take a look at the roof. You see, it's very important. A lot of people go up there. You can hire somebody to go up there on the roof and get a really detailed inspection, but even now, roof inspections are going heavily toward the drone, because this drone can fly very closely above a property and take a photograph carefully about a very high detailed photograph of a roof and see exactly what condition that roof is in. And that's tremendously important and useful for commercial spaces and towns and so on, where they want to survey an area from the air, for example. In one case in Miami, I guess it was some years ago, there was a huge hurricane, and they had to send up drones, and they said fly over all the houses and see where all the damage is. You can see where the trees are, and it's very safe. Nobody has to go in there, and the power line's down. You can get all kinds of really, really beautiful, very important information using one of these things. Now, it's not just the skill of flying it around. It's also knowing about photography, because there's a whole lot of different settings that you can put in this thing, and you can go on waypoints, and you can set it up for what they call a hyperlapse. It's basically every couple of seconds, or you can program it to a number of different ways, but it'll take a whole lot of pictures, maybe a few hundred, and go on a flight for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then the software will integrate all those photographs and make a beautiful video. So there's a lot to operating a drone. Now, a lot of people think you can just go out and get one of those hobby drones and go up and take a few pictures. So you might, it's sort of useful, I guess, if you have a home that you're trying to sell on your own, but someone professional like me can go out there, and knowing how houses are built and knowing the real estate business in general, I can use this drone, and I will be using this drone for helping all my customers and buyers alike to assist them in their decision making about a property. Now, we here in Virginia, there's a lot of open land, a lot of agriculture and forestry where it's difficult to climb in there. Sometimes you can take an ATV in there, but You can fly a drone over a farm or something and count the cows or whatever you want to do, and you can turn it around and say, hey, I didn't even know my property was like that. And especially when the leaves are down, like in autumn, like it is now, pretty soon you can fly a drone around and see stuff on the land that you never imagined was there. Now, just a little off note here, I was looking at some property last year, and I was looking at the survey. It was 45 acres and very hilly in one part, so you really couldn't walk the whole thing. So I went out and looked at the survey, the satellite photos online, and I realized, like, wow, there's a lot of junk cars in that area, in that general area. Fortunately, on this particular property, there weren't no junk cars, but you can see stuff from the air that you just won't even know about until you send a small drone up there. Now, I used to do aerial photography, like I said, and the limit in a recreational area, you can't fly less than 500 feet above ground level, even unless you're landing. In most areas, even in the woods area, in around a residential area, that number is higher. You have to be at least 1,000 feet or 2,000 sometimes in some areas. So there's a lot of regulation about the height, but the drone goes up to that level, and there's things that a plane can do better from the air because it can cover a wide area and go much higher altitude and so on. But the drone has a lot of advantages that a small aircraft or even a helicopter doesn't. A helicopter, I've been on some jobs in aerial photography where I used a helicopter, and believe me, if you fly low with a helicopter, everybody's going to know it. It just makes a huge thudding and noise and everything, so that's why they don't do it very often. You don't want to, usually I see helicopters around here going up and down the Shenandoah Valley, and they're probably around 5,000 feet, 4 or 5, something like that, because they're up there. Most of the time they're not down low under 1,000 feet. So now, other things that we use the drones for, which I'll go into here, is towns and tourism. So, you know, there's a lot of beautiful scenery in many parts of the country, and it's very difficult to photograph normally. I used to be a ground photographer as well, so it's hard to position yourself in certain ways to get a good photograph. So you can use a drone to just get on that edge that you just, that one angle that you just can't get from just walking position, see? And that's the clever part about using a drone, because you have to know photography as well if you want to use it for this kind of a business. So it really helps understand the effect of different kinds of light, the angle of light has, and reflections off glass and water and so on, and using polarizing filters and so on, and neutral density filters to accentuate and professionalize your images. So survey of tourism and events. Now, flying over people is another subject, and there's some laws I won't get into here. But basically, with some kind of a Class A drone, which is this small one, which is lightweight, it can fly over people, but just, you know, there's certain rules. You have to kind of move it along. You don't want to just to get really low on people and so on. And so there's ways of using the camera just from a slight distance where you're not actually over people, but you can zoom the camera in from a distance and you can still seem like you're over it. Or if you fly a sufficient height and zoom in, and there's a safety factor, if the drone starts to lose an engine, if one of these things goes down, then this drone's going to drop like a rock, basically. So it's going to crash. So you don't want to be just hovering over people very low and all that. So again, towns and businesses, people like to say, hey, if you're a landscaping company, or maybe you're a big factory spread out, you're really proud of it or something, maybe you have a big farm, you want to just get some sweeping, maybe you raise cattle, you can get some sweeping, just beautiful scenery of your beautiful farm for all your marketing promotion. And how long does it take? Let's talk a little bit about the actual jobs. Basically, when I was doing regular photography and aviation photography, I used a flight plan like this. All pilots do. They have some kind of basic flight plan like this, different designs and so on. It has some information on your waypoints in the back. And flying a drone is a complex thing that to get really great footage, you don't just go up and down. You see, you can program it and get different angles and change the angle of your drone. There's a cinematic mode that normally when a drone moves to a turn, the camera will stay level. But in an aircraft, if you fly at an angle, you're going to go off at a tilt, and your view is also going to look at an angle. So you can set it to cinematic mode in this particular drone, where when you turn like that, it stays in a turn and it does that sweeping, beautiful kind of photography. So this is a real asset to this industry, and there's many more uses. And I encourage people to contact me at Lionstein Realty and Moneta, and contact me through the website too, YouTube here, and I'll answer any kind of questions about some of the aspects of flying a drone. Now, again, there's a lot of safety. People ask about that all the time. Well, we have a return to home feature. We have low battery. You can, if it gets too low, it'll automatically fly back. It's always geo-positioned, and commercial drones are registered, and in about a year from now, they all will be transponding directly live when they're up there in the air. So basically, you have to file a flight plan, and if it comes down and conks somebody on the head, someone wants to know about it, who did it, and your name is going to be right here, or your ID is right there on the top of the aircraft. So, similar to that, emphasize the skill it takes and the knowledge of safety. And first of all, the way we do in aviation, even in a small plane, is you avoid possible things. Just like driving. If you want to be safe and avoid heavy traffic, you go on nicer roads, stay distant from people, all the different things you can do to minimize any kind of risk when you're flying or driving. The same thing with a drone. When I go and do a drone job, what I'm going to do, basically, I have a flight plan. I'll make some diagrams for myself. I'll go check the map. I'll check the weather that day. I'll try to determine a good angle for photographing this, and where I'm going to launch from, and where I'm going to return to, and what I'm going to do in between. So it requires quite a bit of planning. It's not just you just throw the drone up and take a few pictures and bring it down. If you really want to get great work done with the drone, you need to have like maybe fly it very, very slow over a property so you can see what's down there, take a whole lot of pictures. So there's software now available for these drones that can scan something down below and make a 3D model of it, so that a contractor can even calculate how much dirt is in a pile. You can calculate the cubic meters and so on. So it's very, very sophisticated technology that is coming out now. So this particular drone, what I do personally is I will photograph homes, any kind of residence. All my real estate listing clients will get this as a package of part of their package. I will do the drone photography and regular video and regular photography if necessary, and I'll put a video on YouTube or wherever they want on Facebook media to, market their home. But this particular drone, I'll tell you a little bit about it here. It has a camera that can also rotate vertically, so that the image shape lines up with your phones and so on for social media, or any kind of technology that way. And it can also hover. It has a lot of built-in functions that I can send it on a journey and cover a wide area and a number of waypoints. It can do some really phenomenal master shots where it'll just like sweep up and do all kinds of amazing images. It's just really phenomenal little machine here, and I've been learning how to use it. Basically what happens is all the data gets stored on a tiny little chip in here, and when you start it up, there's a little thing here that says, okay, it's got a full battery right now, and when I start this thing up, it'll click and the little lights will come on. It actually has aviation lights on it like a real aircraft. It's quite exciting. Now, this is a really new thing. I want to end my video here and not make it too long, but I'm launching this and I want people to understand how sophisticated it is, the various uses. It's up to your imagination. If there's a part of your property that, your trees fell down, you don't want to hike back up there, you can send one up there. There's thermal imaging available now for some of these drones, where you can attach a thermal imaging camera and it will determine, like at night, well, night flying is another thing. You can get waivers on that. But It can determine the heat radiation from a building or something, or whether a solar cells are functioning correctly or they're cracked or something. They can do that. So my name is Paul Smyers. I'm a photographer, basically a real estate agent and a small plane pilot, and soon to be a licensed unmanned aircraft pilot. And I encourage people to contact me if you have any questions. This video is basically for newbies. There's a lot of sophisticated operators out there already who have none. I learn from them. I constantly increase my knowledge and get more expertise at the work I do. So thanks again for listening. Hope to see you in some of my other videos. And if you have any questions, please like and share also. And I hope to see you in some of my other videos.